all things podcasting. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can profit from your podcast, how to monetize the mic, if you will. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And a lot of people, when they're first getting started, think that they need to have a bunch of sponsors when they're first starting. They think that sponsorship and running ads is the only way to profit from your podcast. And that's just not true. When we start working with a client, the number one thing we ask them is, do you have a paid offer, as in a membership, a course, a book, an online product, coaching, something of that sort that we can direct listeners to? Because if you are not using your podcast to grow your business, then your podcast is just a hobby. This podcast is intended to grow your audience, grow the number of people in your funnel, grow the number of people who are interested in buying what you have to offer. So the number one way we always tell people to monetize is to sell your products, sell your coaching, sell your membership, sell your courses, sell what you have to offer before you worry about selling what other people have to offer. So when I get on a discovery call, a lot of times with new clients, their first question is, how soon can I get a sponsor? How soon can I start running ads? How many listeners do I need to get in order to get a sponsor? Can I get a big sponsor that's going to pay me a lot of money? These are all the questions that I hear. And I always bring them back to, what are you selling on the podcast? Because the point of the podcast isn't to grow somebody else's business. It's not to send your listeners dollars their way. You want to keep all those coins in-house. You want to keep all that money coming back to you. And of course, through the sponsors, like, you're getting some money from that, but it's not the same as selling your products, which are then going to lead them to move through your funnel, buy your higher ticket items, and keep that money in-house. So when we first are starting with the podcast, we always want to focus first on growing your audience, growing your listenership, and promoting your offers. And also, that is the quickest and easiest way to monetize. It's so natural to have these conversations with people through your podcast, get them engaged. They're going to be mentally invested in you, and that's going to make it so much easier for them to invest in the next step. They're going to want more from you automatically as they're listening to your episodes and hearing what you have to say. They're going to be like, oh, well, that's awesome. I want her templates for that, or I want more information, or I want the step-by-step process of how to do that. It's just a natural transition to go from them listening to the podcast to them buying into your offers. And we do ads for our clients. We have one of our clients, the first week their podcast launched, they got an offer for a sponsor, which is awesome. Don't turn that down, like, as long as it's aligned with you. And it has to be something that you feel like is a good investment. It has to be something that you feel good about referring your clients to, something that you love to use, a company that you really like. So it has to fit in with your mission and your overall goal for the podcast. Like, if you have a health and wellness podcast, you're not going to do an ad for McDonald's. Like, it has to fit into the flow of your podcast and the mission and your content matter and all of that. Fun statistic for you: 76% of podcast listeners will take action on an ad after listening. That doesn't mean they buy necessarily, but they will go to whatever link you share with them and they will take some sort of action on that, which is crazy. Like, anybody who's familiar with Facebook ads or anything like that, that would basically be like a 76% click through rate. So it's crazy high numbers because these podcast listeners are super loyal. If you say, I really love this product, you should go out and buy it, they're at least going to check it out. So that's a super cool statistic just to know. Like, when you're talking to people about being a sponsor for the podcast, just know that like 76% of your listenership is going to go check out their link. So even if you only have 100 listeners, that's still 76 people that are going to go check out their website that wouldn't have otherwise. I interrupt this podcast episode to bring you a quick ad for our Podcast Accelerator membership. If you're ready to magnetize and monetize your podcast, then the Podcast Accelerator membership is right for you. It contains everything that you or your VA need to know in order to promote and profit from your podcast. It includes things like graphic templates, caption templates, and how-to videos for things like audiograms, videograms, quote graphics, static graphics, IGTV, and SEO-rich blog posts. It includes a promotional strategy roadmap of what to post, when, where, and why, templates and videos for planning podcast episodes that are optimized for action, descriptions and show note templates for YouTube and podcasting, accountability for creating and publishing content, strategies and templates for monetizing your podcast, a private Facebook group for members only for them to connect and ask questions. This membership is everything that you need to grow and monetize your podcast. We are even going to do bonus trainings like how to get guest spots on podcasts, how to get guests on your podcast, and other fun things. Basically, if you ask for it, we'll deliver. All of the templates allow you to really streamline your podcast marketing so that you can get as much content as possible out of your podcast, but also not spend hours creating it. Check out the show description for a link to the membership. Okay, so different types of ads. We have pre-roll ads, mid-roll ads, and post-roll ads. And they're kind of self-explanatory, but pre-roll is before the podcast gets started. So that's typically in between your formal intro and then like your informal intro where you're just like, hey, welcome back. So it kind of squeezes in between there. A mid-roll ad is we interrupt the scheduled programming and slide an ad in there. And those are the most effective ads because people aren't going to skip past them. If you do a pre-roll ad, people a lot of times will skip through the intro and the ads at the beginning. If you've listened to Joe Rogan's podcast, you have probably skipped through his 20 minutes of ads at the beginning. So the pre-roll ads and the post-roll ads are kind of on the same level. I would pick a pre-roll ad over a post-roll ad because post-roll, once the episode is over and then you're going to go into ads and then the formal outro. So people are just going to turn the podcast off at that point. And then they're going to miss your formal outro that is always going to have your big consistent call to action. So it's going to have something like a webinar that drives them to a high ticket offer, or it has your main call to action, the main thing that you want people to do after listening to the podcast. So that's the call to action you really want them to hear. So by putting in those ads in between the episode and the outro, you're kind of disrupting that natural flow of things. And people are just going to turn it off. They're not going to listen to the ads. They're not going to listen to your outro. So you really want to keep it cohesive at the end. Mid-roll ads people are going to listen to because a lot of times when people are listening to podcasts, we know one of the benefits is you can listen to a podcast while you're driving your kids to school, doing the dishes, whatever. So typically you aren't going to have your hands free in the middle of an episode to skip, a minute or whatever to get past the ads. So those are the most effective because people are like, oh, it's an ad. Like I'll just listen to it. And then it's kind of easy to make it part of the conversation and not feel like such an abrupt thing. A lot of people do put music in the background, which kind of helps people know like this isn't part of the episode. It's an ad. I have heard that some people do ads that are mid-roll ads and they're like 6 minutes long or 5 minutes long. That is way too long. And it's always the same ad over and over again promoting their product or their new membership or whatever. And it is just too much. I don't want to listen to the same 6-minute speech about your offer every time. Like give me some new information or make it short and sweet to the point. We usually say a minute for ads is enough because after that, you're kind of making your listeners feel like it's not authentic anymore. You're not really there for them. You're just there to sell, which brings me to my next point. Your podcast is to sell your offers. Yes, but that cannot be the only purpose. Everything cannot tie back to work with me, work with me, work with me. You need to bring value into these episodes so that people know that you know what you're talking about. You can give 75% of your magic juice away for free on the podcast, and people will pay you for that 25% that you're not giving them. Through the podcast, they're hearing you talk about it, but they're not getting a step-by-step action plan. They're not getting the templates. They're not getting one-on-one time with you. They're not getting their questions answered. It's all of those things that people are willing to pay money for that you can give them all of this information for free about your process and about what you do and about how you help your clients. You can give them all of that information for free and they're still going to want to pay you for that 25% because they want the whole thing. They want access to you. They want access to your step by steps. They want access to your templates. They want to make it as easy as possible for them. So once they know that you know what you're talking about and they trust the information that you have, it's so easy for them to take that leap and invest in you to get more information. So make sure that you're always bringing value and it's not focused solely on selling things. Of course, that's always the purpose. We know that. We're not trying to hide the fact that we're trying to make sales through your podcast, but it needs to be value focused and relationship focused first. Okay. So more ways to monetize. Another fun way that's similar to ads, you're going to set it up the same way, pre-roll, mid-roll, or post-roll, but it's an ad that you're going to create for an affiliate link. Audible is a really great one to do for this. It's super low barrier to entry, and all they have to do is sign up for a free trial for 30 days, and you get a kickback from it. So like if you have a book on Audible, super easy transition there. Or if you read books a lot on Audible or like are talking about a certain book in a podcast episode, that's a super great way to be like, hey, I really love this book. It's available on Audible. You can listen to it for free if you subscribe through my affiliate link, 30-day subscription. And, that helps us keep the podcast up and running so we can keep bringing you guys value. There you go. There's your affiliate ad. You're just going to tell them the link, put the link in the show notes, and you're done. Good, ready to go. You can also do that for things like courses and memberships. A lot of times that you've taken will have an affiliate link. If they don't, reach out and ask whoever is putting on the course or the membership, because a lot of times they will create that for you because they want you to refer people. There's all kinds of different affiliate links out there. You can find ones that align with your business. You can search, affiliate links for realtors or affiliate links for life coaches. You can search all of these things so that you can have some affiliate links to plug in for ads. The last thing we're going to talk about is having a private podcast. So there's a ton of private podcast platforms out there, but basically it works the same as a membership. People are going to pay you a monthly subscription fee and they're going to get access to a private podcast. And this is going to be exclusive content. Like there's several of them where the podcaster is reading children's books out loud. So you're getting a new book every week, or some of them are like every day read out loud. And so like your kids have bedtime story ready to go. There's different ones that give usually like a more actionable steps or like exclusive content or the extended version of an interview. You're giving them more, or it's like a really like personal thing, but it's more expanded upon than your free podcast. Or some people only have a paid podcast, which is totally a route that you can go. You have to have a certain audience level in order to really make that work and kind of gauge your interest beforehand. So you can always ask your audience, like, hey, if I did a paid podcast where I recorded every week and gave you guys the inside scoop on X, Y, and Z, would you be interested in that? And kind of get a gauge for like what the price points would be and all of that. So that's a really fun route to go. And a lot of people also now are including private podcast as part of their membership or as part of their course or their coaching that just kind of helps keep those connections going. A lot of people are doing it in place of group coaching calls. So they'll have people like submit questions beforehand, record a podcast episode, answering all of those questions and then distributing it out to them. Or they're doing it instead of having an audiobook. They'll read their book out loud via podcast, and have people pay for it to listen to their book. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can monetize your podcast. It's not as complicated as it sounds, I promise. There are a lot of like different price points and stuff as far as sponsors. And that's kind of something that it varies based on industry. It varies based on listenership level. So there's not like a one tried and true formula to say like, if you have X number of listeners in this industry, then this is how much you should charge. You kind of just have to get a feel for it. A lot of times when sponsors come to you, they'll already have an idea of what they want to pay in order to get a slot. There's all kinds of like online calculators that say per this many thousand listeners, charge this much per 10 seconds or whatever. And those are a good starting point. But honestly, a lot of our clients are getting sponsors paid at a much higher rate than that, with a much smaller listenership. So it's all kind of, you just have to, it's like pricing your course or pricing your membership. You just have to get a feel for it, figure out what people are willing to pay in your industry. And of course, always tell potential sponsors the value that those 76% of your listeners are going to be taking action, that it means a lot to your listeners that you're backing that product and that they have no like and trust with you. And so you're eliminating that process for your sponsor. So let's recap it all up. So you can sell your courses, your memberships, your coaching. That's always the place to start. If you're going to have an ad and you don't have a sponsor, but you want to run an ad for yourself in the middle of the podcast. You can have sponsors, pre-roll, post-roll, mid-roll ads, and that's somebody else paying you to promote their product, their service, their business on your podcast. You can have a private podcast where people are paying you to get exclusive content that only they have access to. It's not live and available everywhere on the internet. Only certain people have access to it. You can promote affiliate links inside ads to drive people to your affiliate link where you get a portion of the purchases that are made. There's a ton of other ways to monetize your podcast. Some little tricks that we have, we might go over those in a later episode, but those are the 4 main ways that you can monetize now and monetize quickly so that you can get those dollars coming into your podcast so you can invest in things like an editor, social media marketing, all of those things to help grow your podcast even further, which of course is then going to grow the amount of money coming in from it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions about monetizing your podcast, as always, hop into our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/AT podcasting, or just search for all things podcasting in the Facebook search bar. Or you can always find me in the DMs on Instagram or on Facebook. All right. I hope you guys have an awesome week and good luck on monetizing your podcast. Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of All Things Podcasting.